Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Well, we knew this was coming, didn't we? But now it's official. Today, Ripple filed cross appeal against the SEC in regards to the Judge Torres ruling in the SEC v. Ripple case. Not a surprise at all because, of course, on October 2nd, the SEC was first to file an appeal in regards to this case. And so here it is on your screen. Shout out and credit to XRP community member and attorney James K. Filan for sharing this. So it's only been about 2 hours since this news broke. As I record this, it's 12:59 p.m. Central Time, Thursday, October 10th, 2024. The earliest news of this that I saw, it actually came from CoinDesk, aka FUDDesk, at 10:55 a.m. Central Time. So I'm going to share with you some initial reactions, but undoubtedly there's going to be a lot more to break down and a lot more perspective from additional members of the XRP community, including attorneys and attorneys outside of the community. But for now, I do have perspective from Ripple's chief legal officer, Stuart Alder. I've got comment from Brad Garlinghouse. I've got perspective from a couple of other attorneys, James Murphy, Fred Rispoli, and former SEC attorney Mark Fagel. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And so briefly, I want to mention price as it pertains to XRP. Now, here's the first instance that I was able to find of this news breaking, coming from CoinDesk at 10:55 a.m. Central. If there is something before this, I could have missed it, but I didn't find it, and it was right around this time that everybody on the entire damn planet started talking about this, so I think this is the origin or very, very close to it at a minimum. And so you can see at that time here, it's 10:55 a.m. Here's the price on a 24-hour chart for XRP. We're actually down from when that news broke. It was a 53.5 cents. We're now right at 53.0783 cents. So technically down. So even when Ripple fights back, the market doesn't care. Now the market barely tanked when the SEC appealed. It went down like 5% and then moved sideways and a little bit up for much of the next week. So it's a big nothing. The market doesn't care, but I thought I'd at least briefly mention that just in case anybody was curious. The market doesn't care. That's good news for XRP holders. But still, let's run through this because it's certainly fascinating. Here's the headline from CoinDesk. Ripple plans cross-appeal in SEC case. Ripple Labs will file a cross-appeal in its ongoing case against the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the company announced Thursday, as part of an effort to maintain its legal defenses as the SEC's own appeal in the case winds its way through an appeals court. The SEC filed a notice of appeal earlier this month in its long-running case against Ripple, which the regulator first sued in December 2020. Ripple's cross-appeal is intended to ensure that the company preserves its points and arguments in the case, Chief Legal Officer Stuart Alder told CoinDesk, though he did not go into detail on what the company may argue in its motions. Yeah, so like I said, folks, lots more information to be available in the coming days and weeks, but I want to share with you what he had to say because, my God, the confidence here. And if I may preface this just slightly, there's this post from October 6th. It's on your screen now, from Stuart Alder, Ripple's chief legal officer. So this is 4 days after the SEC filed their appeal in the Ripple case. Now we're another 4 days past that. So on October 6th, when he posted what I'm about to read, which is on your screen right here, I thought, what might this mean? And I think looking back, it's pretty clear, although, we were speculating this, right? That the post, which I'm about to read from you, was in reference exactly to what ended up happening today. It's just that he shared this 4 days ago, and it could have seemed a little cryptic on the surface. Is he just talking about a movie scene that he likes? Oh no, I think more than that. So here is the post from Stuart Alder on October 6th. He said, "My favorite scene in The Bronx Tale is when the motorcycle gang bullies their way into the local bar. When they refuse to leave, the boss calmly locks the door, says, 'Now yous can't leave,' and then proceeds to annihilate the gang." And so think about this. How does that pertain to the Ripple case? Well, the SEC appeals, so then Ripple's like, oh God, we gotta deal with these asshat pricks still. But then Ripple's like, no, wait. We're going to go ahead and lock the doors and say, now yous guys, you SEC, now you can't leave. I think that's exactly what he was getting at. That's my speculation there, right? What else would he even be talking about here? But I think that's kind of funny. So this, although maybe cryptic seeming on the surface at least a little bit, I think that he was hinting, yeah, we absolutely are going to cross appeal. But I mean, it would have been insane not to. So I think pretty much everybody in the community was speculating, yeah, it's a virtual certainty they're going to. What's there to lose at this point? But here's what Stuart Alder posted. This is at 11:05 a.m. Central Time, so 10 minutes after CoinDesk shared this news. Here's what Stuart Alder had to say. The SEC lost on all key points. That's why they appealed. Today, Ripple filed a cross appeal to ensure there's nothing left on the table, including the argument that there can't be an investment contract without there being essential rights and obligations found in a contract. Importantly, the SEC has already said they aren't appealing the ruling that XRP itself isn't a security. They even apologized in another case for suggesting a token itself could be a security. That's the law, and an appeal on these other issues doesn't change it. And so I'll pause just to remind you of this, or maybe you hadn't heard this. This is news actually from a month ago. Here's a story from Cointelegraph, then I'll get right back to Alder's comments. SEC regrets any confusion from dubbing tokens as securities. According to a footnote in a September 12th court filing, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission has retracted its long-standing characterization of cryptocurrencies as securities and intends to use more careful language in the future. The retraction arose from the SEC's ongoing lawsuit against crypto exchange Binance for allegedly offering and selling unregistered securities. In a 2023 complaint, the SEC identified 10 crypto assets on the Binance platform as securities, including the native tokens of Solana, Cardano, and Polygon. The SEC, quote, regrets any confusion, end quote, caused by its characterization of these tokens as, quote, crypto asset securities, end quote, and no longer uses the shorthand term. Well, thanks for nothing. Like, we're sorry. We just ruined your lives a little bit, but it was just a little bit. We're sorry. You freaking. These are the most terrible people on the entire damn planet. Freaking SEC. Easily the worst agency that it's ever been put together by the United States federal government. At least in its current iteration with these people at the top. Freaking worthless bureaucrats. So there we are. It has to do with the claims that have made countless other cases, including the Ripple case. Crypto asset securities. Oh, we're sorry. So they like to pretend like they weren't arguing that the asset itself was a security, but then you look at their arguments. Clearly, that's what they were doing. The asset itself is a security, even though that is not coherent when you look at the definition of what the hell a security is. Not as it pertains to digital asset. Absolutely not. And then the application with Howie, completely ridiculous, but here we are. This is the life we live. Because we're forced to. Stuart Alder continues here. Here's his post from this morning. He says, last year, the SEC unsuccessfully tried to take an early appeal of the rulings that Ripple's XRP sales on exchanges and Ripple's other XRP distributions, like to employees and developers, weren't securities. They'll likely go after these again, and they will lose on both again. We look forward to the Federal Court of Appeals finally putting a stake in the heart of Gensler's misguided attack on our industry. Yeah, and so I'll pause to note here. There's a real chance here that if this goes the way that Ripple wants this to upon appeal, this could absolutely destroy the SEC's ability to litigate in the way that it has. Absolutely destroy it. I'm going to circle back to that topic a little bit later in the video, so put a pin in that, but this could be really bad for the SEC. Now, as far as what Stuart Alder was referencing here about how the SEC already tried to appeal this and they were unsuccessful, he's talking about when the SEC filed for interlocutory appeal. Here's a story from October 4th of last year. U.S. SEC cannot appeal Ripple Labs decision, judge rules. This is from Reuters. A federal judge on Tuesday refused to let the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission appeal her recent decision involving Ripple Labs, a ruling that has been seen as a major defeat for the regulator in its effort to police cryptocurrency markets. In her July 13th decision, U.S. District Judge Annalisa Torres in Manhattan had ruled that the sale of Ripple's XRP digital token on public exchanges complied with federal securities laws because purchasers had no reasonable expectation of profit based on Ripple's efforts. Yeah, so of course that makes sense if you're buying XRP on an exchange and you don't know who it's coming from and you don't know that you're even buying it from Ripple, even if you do. Well, how can you expect them to do anything for you? You don't know if it's from them. It just seems like no-brainer stuff here. Here's what Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse had to say about this. As I said earlier this month, if Gensler and the SEC cared about the rule of law, they would accept their loss and move on. But they are not interested in faithfully applying the law or in providing clarity to industry players in the U.S. Under Chair Gensler, the agency is only interested in creating havoc. U.S. innovation and technology be damned. With our cross appeal today, we're looking forward to sealing the SEC's fate, I love that sentence, and finally putting an end to the SEC's regulation by enforcement agenda. Ripple was the industry leader in the first go-round in court, and we look forward to leading the way in this round as well. Yeah, as I've said many times before, and it's worth repeating, this will not go well for the SEC. Absolutely not. They have very little to gain and a ton to lose. But as I've said many times before, very frequently the SEC makes legal decisions and puts forth legal arguments that aren't even in their own best interest. Their egos get ahead of them, and they just can't even help it. This is not worth it. But they just can't let it go because they are furious that they lost on all of the stuff that actually matters. Here's a post from attorney James Murphy, aka Meta Lawman. He simply wrote in response to Stuart Alder's post, "It's on. Respect to Stuart Alder, Brad Garlinghouse, and the whole Ripple legal team. The crypto industry and pro-innovation politicians need to gear up to support Ripple with amicus briefs." Yeah, and I'm certainly counting on that. I'm hoping we get more amicus briefs than during the SEC v. Ripple case. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to happen because in this case, well, here's what I would hope. If we're going to see an influx of amicus briefs, I'm hoping you get more amicus briefs from entities like exchanges who didn't participate. So you had Coinbase and Fine Credit where it's due, they did file one. But most of the other participants, like you didn't see much from most of them anyway. And there were other players that could have as well. So I'd like to see more of them step in. I don't know how much you're going to see from developers this go round, but well, in part because XRP already has legal clarity, so it just kind of makes you wonder: are they going to? We'll see here. But then there's also this post from attorney Fred Rispoli, and he wrote, "Although obvious, Ripple has officially cross-appealed. Stakes are super high now. SEC views New York as its fiefdom. If it gets reversed on its trial court win on institutional sales, it's effed." See, that's what I was talking about. It's highly risky, and I'm going to have even more to share with you with that in just a second. Just hang with me here. I'm going in a particular order. And then Rispoli says, "Of course, an SEC loss at the Second Circuit of that magnitude, combined with a Harris win, would guarantee an appeal to the Supreme Court. If Trump wins, there may not be a Supreme Court appeal in the event of an SEC loss at the Second Circuit." And so I had a question on this. I don't know. It looks like, I haven't gotten a response from him, so I won't even bother reading it. I'm kind of curious. I don't know what his rationale. I'm sure he's got a reason. I'm just curious why he thinks that, if there happens to be a Trump win here, that there'd be less likely that there'd be. Well, here, let me just read it again. Combined with a Harris win would guarantee an appeal to the Supreme Court. Okay, yeah, so that's the part that I was wondering about. And I don't know what the rationale is. That's why I was just purely curious. He thinks that, if the SEC loses in the Second Circuit, which is highly probable, but if there's also a Harris win, he thinks that would guarantee an appeal to the Supreme Court. I'm not sure why who wins the presidency matters in terms of what he's thinking here. So that we can always talk about that more in the future if he ends up expanding upon those thoughts. There's also this from former SEC attorney Mark Fagel. He said, "Nothing to lose by cross-appealing. Would have been weird if they didn't. Reversal is a long shot for both parties. I personally think it's a much longer shot for Ripple than the SEC, but that's just me." Yeah, well, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. That's particularly fine. But, when I think about this, Ripple's ODL sales, they're clearly, if you're talking about an ODL sale, there's clearly no expectation of profit, which is a primary reason I find it surprising that Judge Torres ruled against Ripple on this matter. Now, of course, I'm not an attorney. I'm just a regular dude here on the internet, just, the lay person here, fine. But just applying simple logic here, I don't see how it passes the Howey test when that prong isn't satisfied, because all prongs of the Howey test must be satisfied. But it wasn't. So that doesn't make sense to me. And then, of course, on the programmatic side, which is what Ripple won on. Well, that makes sense because you don't know you're buying from Ripple if you're on an exchange. So how could there be any sort of contract implied or anything of the sort? So it doesn't pass Howey there. So Ripple won there, which is fantastic. But still, Attorney Fagel, former SEC attorney, thinks that neither of them's likely to win, but SEC's got a better shot. I disagree. Now, I'm not an attorney, so is what it is. But I don't find that argument compelling, personally. Attorney Fagel also said in response to Stuart Alder, because remember, Stuart Alder said the SEC lost on all key points, and I agree. Attorney Fagel does not agree. So he wrote, the SEC lost on all key points, says the company appealing the part of that case the SEC obviously won, i.e. the part where the court found Ripple illegally raised over $700 million in an unregistered offering of securities. And somebody named Dan responded to that and wrote, exactly, that part of the case not being a key point. And so that is subjective. Is it a key point that Ripple rather lost on the institutional side here? Is it? Well, what do you mean by key point? It's a term that you can apply subjectively. What is the meaning if you say key point? Because I would argue this. I don't think that Ripple views it as key. Like, if the SEC had not appealed, do you think that Ripple would have filed an appeal on their own? I speculate the answer is no. I don't think they give a damn. Ripple already won everything that matters. So at this point, since the SEC decided to stir the pot further, why wouldn't Ripple respond? So they are. But, was it key for them? I don't think Ripple thinks it was key for them. They would have preferred it didn't go that way. They would have preferred that there weren't these monetary penalties. Is it key? Well, how do you define key? That's where it's subjective, and that's where people are arguing. It's over semantics in part. But if you just get down to the bottom line, does Ripple really care much about that? The answer is no. They're just cross-appealing because why wouldn't you at this point? So I would disagree with Attorney Fagel on that as well. I don't have anything new from Attorney Jeremy Hogan yet. He hasn't posted anything yet. But again, as I'm recording this, now it's 1:16 p.m. Central Time. So this just happened a little over 2 hours ago. So there will be more to cover. I'd be surprised if Attorney Hogan doesn't have something to say about this. But I will share this post from October 2nd, the day that the SEC appealed. And he was warning, this is a bad move for the SEC. So let me read at least part of this here. Jeremy Hogan wrote, initial thoughts on the SEC appeal. Number one, big mistake by the SEC. It will appeal the programmatic sales ruling, and if it wins, it will get more money from Ripple and have protected no one. Ripple will raise its blue sky law issue, and if it wins, the SEC's ability to regulate the entire crypto space is essentially destroyed. Not a good calculation of risk by the SEC. It would make a poor stock trader. Okay, so now I've come back to what I promised you I'd come back to. If the SEC wins, maybe they get some extra monies. Yay. But what are they risking in doing this? They're risking, if they lose, they're risking their entire ability to exert power and their BS regulation by enforcement. They're going to lose it all if this doesn't go well here for them. It's not worth the risk, but they did it anyway. It's completely absurd. But that's why I keep saying they keep doing stuff that's not in their best interest. Attorney Hogan then says, this is an appeal by right, not like when the SEC tried to appeal before. The trial judge can't reject the appeal. The SEC is very, very likely to lose, both statistically and based on the fact-heavy way the judge wrote her opinion. Even if the SEC were to win on appeal, it's very likely just a matter of money. Nothing would change as to XRP and its use by Ripple. So we're in the clear here. Again, I'll be following this closely throughout the day. I'm sure in the coming days and certainly weeks and months ahead, there's going to be plenty to cover. But that's the initial reaction here, and that's what's going down. This is not good for the SEC, but it's good for, probably it could be good for Ripple anyway, and XRP's in the clear regardless. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!